Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The blow connected with a sickening thud, the sharp toe of the Italian leather Oxford driving the breath from Julian's lungs and sending him sprawling across the cold, polished marble of the luxury boutique. It happened in a blur of motion and malice. One moment Julian was admiring a sapphire tie pin, thinking of how it would match his husband's eyes, and the next, the world had tilted on its axis, dissolving into a kaleidoscope of pain and humiliation. The silence that fell over the high-end store was immediate and suffocating, heavier than the oppressive scent of expensive perfume and sanitized air. Julian gasped, clutching his side, his vision swimming as he looked up from the floor. Standing over him, sneering with a familiarity that made Julian's blood run cold, was a man he had prayed never to see again. "Lucas, I knew I smelled trash," Lucas spat, adjusting the cuff of his blazer, his face twisted into a mask of arrogant disdain. He looked exactly as he had 3 years ago, handsome in a sharp, predatory way, with eyes that lacked any genuine warmth. "What are you doing here, Julian? Did you break in to steal something? Or are you turning tricks in the fitting rooms now?" Julian tried to scramble backward, his heart hammering against his bruised ribs. The ghost of his old life, the life of a discarded, debt-ridden Omega, rose up to choke him. Memories of cold nights, empty stomachs, and Lucas's cold rejection played out behind his eyes. I'm shopping," Julian managed to wheeze, his voice trembling despite his best efforts to remain composed. He wasn't that weak boy anymore. He couldn't be. Lucas laughed, a harsh, barking sound that drew the nervous glances of the shop assistants who were too terrified to intervene. "Shopping? You? Don't make me laugh. You're a stray dog, Julian. I kicked you out of my penthouse without a penny to your name. You're probably wearing a knockoff suit you found in a dumpster." He took a step forward, his alpha pheromones flaring in a wave of aggressive, acrid spice designed to force submission. He raised his foot again, aiming for Julian's stomach. "Get out before I call security and have them drag you out by your hair. You're staining the floor." Julian flinched, bracing for the second impact, squeezing his eyes shut. But the blow never came. Instead, the temperature in the boutique seemed to drop 20 degrees in a single heartbeat. The air grew heavy, thick with a terrifying, primal pressure that made the hairs on the back of everyone's neck stand up. It was a presence so overwhelming, so violently dominant, that it felt as if a predator of ancient myth had just stepped into the room. "I suggest you put your foot down," a voice rumbled from the entrance. It was low, smooth, and darker than the deepest abyss. "Unless you want to lose it." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ambient music seemed to die away. Lucas froze, his foot hovering in the air, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. He turned slowly, annoyed at the interruption. "Stay out of this. This is personal business between me and this filth." The words died in his throat. Standing in the archway of the boutique was a man who looked like he had been carved from shadow and marble. He was tall, towering over 6'3", with broad shoulders encased in a bespoke black suit that cost more than Lucas's car. His hair was slicked back, revealing a face of devastating, cruel beauty, marked by a thin, pale scar cutting through his left eyebrow. But it was his eyes that froze the blood in Lucas's veins. They were gray, storm-colored, and devoid of any humanity. They were the eyes of a man who had ended lives without a fluctuating pulse. It was Dante Vesper, the Capo dei Capi, the shadow king of the city's underworld. And he was looking at Lucas with the dispassionate curiosity of a man deciding how best to dissect an insect. Dante didn't rush. He didn't run to Julian. He walked into the store with a slow, predatory grace, his footsteps echoing like the ticking of a doomsday clock. His pheromones flooded the space, not the spicy aggression of a common alpha like Lucas, but the scent of ozone, gunpowder, and freezing rain. It was a scent that commanded absolute obedience. The shop assistants fell to their knees, heads bowed, instinctively recognizing the apex predator. Lucas, however, was too stunned, too caught in his own arrogance to fully comprehend his position. He lowered his foot, stumbling back slightly. "And Mr. Vesper," he stammered, his voice cracking. I didn't know you frequented this mall." I was just dealing with a thief. Dante stopped 3 feet away from them. He didn't look at Lucas. His gaze was fixed solely on Julian, who was still on the floor, clutching his side. The coldness in Dante's expression fractured, replaced for a split second by a look of agonizing concern. He knelt, ignoring the dust on the pristine floor, his large, calloused hand reaching out to cup Julian's cheek. "Tesoro," Dante whispered, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. "Are you hurt?" Julian leaned into the touch, the familiar scent of his mate grounding him, pulling him out of the panic attack. "I'm okay, Dante. He caught me off guard." "He kicked you," Dante stated, the flatness of his tone more terrifying than a scream. He brushed his thumb under Julian's eye. "He touched what belongs to me." Lucas let out a strangled noise, his face draining of all color until he looked like a wax figure. "B belongs to you." "But that's Julian. He's nobody. He's my ex. A poor, useless Omega." Dante slowly rose to his full height. When he turned to face Lucas, the air in the room seemed to vibrate. The store managers were now trembling behind the counter, one of them frantically dialing a number, likely the funeral home. "Your ex," Dante repeated, tasting the words as if they were poison. He took a step toward Lucas. Lucas took 2 steps back, hitting a display of silk scarves. I didn't know," Lucas babbled, sweat beading on his forehead. "Mr. Vesper, please. It's a misunderstanding. If I knew he was your plaything, I never would have." Dante moved. It was too fast for the human eye to track. One moment he was standing still, the next his hand was wrapped around Lucas's throat, slamming him against the wall with enough force to crack the plaster. Expensive merchandise crashed to the floor. Lucas clawed at the iron grip, his legs dangling inches off the ground, his face turning a mottled purple. "Plaything?" Dante asked softly, tilting his head. "You think I married a plaything?" The revelation hit Lucas harder than the physical impact. Married. The word echoed in his oxygen-starved brain. The ring on Julian's finger. The one Lucas had assumed was fake. It was a Vesper family heirloom. "You kicked my husband," Dante said, his voice dropping to a subsonic growl that vibrated in Lucas's chest. "You kicked the only person in this world who keeps my demons at bay. Do you have any idea what you have done?" Please," Lucas wheezed, tears streaming down his face. Mercy is a concept I abandoned long ago," Dante said coldly. "But Julian has a soft heart. If I kill you right here, it will upset him. He doesn't like blood on my suits." Dante released him. Lucas crumpled to the floor, gasping for air, coughing violently. He thought he had survived. He thought he had been spared. He was wrong. Dante pulled a sleek black phone from his pocket. He didn't look at Lucas. He looked at the boutique manager. "Close the store? No one leaves until I say so." "Yes, Mr. Vesper," the manager squeaked, rushing to lock the glass doors. Dante dialed a number, putting it on speaker. "Yes, boss," a voice answered instantly. "Acquire the Sterling Group," Dante said, his eyes boring into Lucas. Lucas froze. The Sterling Group was his family's company. Everything he owned, everything he was tied to it. "Sir," the voice on the phone asked. "That will take a few days to negotiate." "I didn't say negotiate," Dante interrupted. "I said acquire it. Hostile takeover. Dump their stocks. Trigger the debt clauses. Bankrupt them. I want every asset frozen within 10 minutes. And find out who holds the mortgage on Lucas Sterling's penthouse. Buy it. Evict him." "Understood, boss." "Consider it done." Lucas stared up at Dante, horror dawning on him. You can't do that. That's illegal." "My father." "Your father," Dante interrupted smoothly, "is currently under investigation for tax fraud. Or at least, he will be in about 5 minutes when I send certain files to the district attorney." Dante crouched down again, so his face was level with Lucas's. "You called my husband poor. You called him abandoned. I want you to understand what those words truly mean." Dante checked his watch. "In 3 minutes, your credit cards will be declined. In 5, your car will be repossessed from the parking lot. By tonight, you will be on the street, exactly where you tried to put Julian." "Dante," Julian called out softly from the floor. He had managed to sit up, wincing as he held his ribs. Dante's head snapped toward him, the demon vanishing instantly. He stood and walked over, scooping Julian up into his arms as if he weighed nothing. He held him close, burying his nose in Julian's neck, inhaling his scent to calm himself. "I'm sorry, amore," Dante murmured into his hair. "I should have been here sooner. I should never have left your side." "It's okay," Julian whispered, resting his head against Dante's broad shoulder. He looked down at Lucas, who was shivering on the floor, a broken man surrounded by the wreckage of his own ego. For a moment, Julian felt a flicker of pity. But then he remembered the kick. He remembered the years of emotional abuse, the way Lucas had made him feel small and worthless. "Let's go home," Julian said. Dante nodded. He turned to walk away, carrying his husband toward the exit. But at the door he paused. "Oh, and Sterling?" Dante called back without turning around. Lucas looked up, eyes red and swollen. "If you ever come within 5 miles of my husband again," Dante said, his voice carrying the weight of a death sentence, "I won't use lawyers. I won't use bankers. I will use a bone saw." He kicked the glass door open, shattering the lock, and carried Julian out into the mall, leaving Lucas amidst the ruins of his life. The drive back to the Vesper estate was silent, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the heavy, protective silence of a storm that had passed but was still lingering on the horizon, waiting to return if necessary. Julian sat in the passenger seat of the armored Maybach, his hand resting on Dante's thigh. Dante drove with one hand, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his jaw set tight. Every few seconds, Dante would glance over, scanning Julian for injuries, his eyes dark with worry. "I'm fine, Dante," Julian said gently. "It's just a bruise." "He touched you," Dante growled, the car accelerating slightly as his anger flared. "I should have taken his leg. I should have taken his foot and mounted it on my wall." "That's a bit morbid, even for you," Julian said with a weak smile. Dante pulled the car over to the side of the private road leading to their estate. The sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the trees. He killed the engine and turned to Julian, unbuckling his seatbelt to lean over. "Show me," Dante commanded softly. Julian hesitated, then unbuttoned his shirt, exposing the skin of his side. A large, angry purple bruise was already forming across his ribs. Dante sucked in a breath, a sound of pure pain. He lowered his head, pressing soft, reverent kisses around the bruise, his lips cool against Julian's hot skin. "I failed you," Dante whispered against his skin. "I promised to protect you from everything, and I let that insect hurt you." Julian threaded his fingers through Dante's hair, guiding his face up. "You didn't fail me. You saved me. You always save me." "I destroyed his life," Dante confessed, searching Julian's eyes for judgment. "He has nothing left. I burned it all to the ground in 10 minutes. Is that too much?" Julian looked at the man who would burn the world for him. He thought of Lucas, of the cruelty, of the arrogance. He thought of the boy he used to be, scared, hungry, and alone, and the man he was now, loved by a king. Julian leaned forward and kissed Dante, a slow, deep kiss that tasted of devotion and power. "No," Julian whispered against his lips. It was just enough. Dante let out a shuddering breath, wrapping his arms around Julian, pulling him as close as the center console would allow. "You are my soul," Dante swore. "My heart beats only because you hold it. If anyone tries to take you from me, I will paint this city red." "I know," Julian said, resting his head on Dante's chest, listening to the powerful, steady rhythm of his heart. "I'm not going anywhere." As the sun dipped below the horizon, plunging the world into darkness, the two of them sat in the quiet safety of the car. The past was dead, left on the floor of a boutique mall. The future was here, wrapped in the arms of a dangerous man who loved with a terrifying intensity. And for the first time in his life, Julian didn't feel like a victim. He felt like a queen who had finally found his king. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Dante take control and destroy that like button, do it now. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a husband who tried to kill you? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art. 2 men, BL, Yaoi, Man 1. Dante, tall alpha mafia boss, Sharp jawline, slicked back black hair, gray eyes, scar on eyebrow, wearing expensive black Italian suit, standing dominantly. Aura of darkness, cold, furious expression. Man 2. Lucas, kneeling on floor. Terrified expression, sweating, looking up in horror, wearing casual, trendy blazer, tears in eyes. Man 3. Julian, Omega, beautiful. Soft features, wearing elegant white suit, standing behind Dante, holding his arm, looking at Lucas with pity and resolve. Background is luxury boutique interior, shattered glass, expensive clothes racks, marble floor, dramatic cinematic lighting, shadows, tense atmosphere.